Round 2. Fight!
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, everybody.
If you're Terra Mystica... Yeah, hello, CrabmasterJohn. This is Zoras. If you're a Terra Mystica fan, there's nowhere else in the world that you want to be right now, because that is a Fire 2 tournament. And it is Group E, probably one of the strongest group, if not the strongest of the tournament. So it's going to be a lot of excitement tonight. How do you feel about this one, Daniel?
I'm feeling really excited about it. I think I agree with you that this is probably the premier group stage game, and I'm not saying that just because I really want nerdcube to win and he's playing this time around. But no, this is gonna be a super exciting game. I mean, everybody in this game is rated extremely highly. We have 4 very fantastic players. I think nerdcube and Ranior both are pretty famous now on the BGA Terra Mystica scene for being exceptionally strong players.
Absolutely.
And just seeing a matchup between them again, which is a repeat of what happened in the first Fire 2 Open, is by itself worth watching. So I'm extremely excited for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 elites players in Ranior's in nerdcube, no doubt about it. 2 players who should be above 600, although for some reason nerdcube seems to always tank his rating before the tournaments. And it's complete. The crew is completed with 2 other experts, 2 very, very strong players. So a lot of excitement today. Here's, speaking of which, the match history between them all. You see that nerdcube, without surprise, has the upper hand. What if there's a surprise here is by how much he seems to be dominating this group.
Yeah, obviously, he's an exceptional player, and you would expect him to have very strong results, even against players of elite caliber like you see in the rest of this group. One thing I want to highlight about the match history is that nerdcube and Ranior have played quite a few games together. The count is at 20 according to the chart, and it's about as close as you could like, 11-9 in favor of nerdcube. So that, I think, is another really interesting thing to look out for. Not to make the group too much about just these 2 players, but it is quite interesting that they've played so many games together and that the margin between them is as razor thin as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a rivalry there. And here you see the best factions for all players. One thing that pops to my eyes when you look at that is Giants figuring out in 2 of them, and Dwarves and Cultists too, but Giants are kind of an odd pick. We've seen, I don't know if you were there for Wednesday's game, but we've seen what Giant can do last Wednesday to a game. Can make things very spicy. And actually Giants won in this game, so kind of curious to see if we get a Giant pick again this one.
Yeah, I think it would be very interesting. I mean, I know that nerdcube has been experimenting a lot with Giants this season, and so it's no surprise that it shows up in his top 3 factions. It always creates very hectic games when you see Giants show up, so it'll be very interesting to see if anybody puts them in. But one of the things that's very interesting about these best factions over the best 50 games is that for the first time, I think we don't see any of the black factions represented. So I think that's very curious, because obviously the 2 black factions are both fairly strong, and especially Darklings, and they have their place in a tournament setting for sure. So we'll see if it's a particularly good game for one of them, which of the 4 players decides to take them on.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, seeing MG here for GeorgeShortwell, I wonder, I feel like most elite players are kind of struggling. When you watch the game overall, it feels that MG often are overbid, and to see MG being high on Shortwell's list makes me wonder if we have any chance of seeing them in this one. Because with bidding, the whole thing is which faction gives you a comparative advantage compared to others. So if he can have an edge with NG, it might be an interesting pick for him.
That's a really excellent point. Now, of course, I would hazard to say in a game with that's as stacked as this one, that a bread and butter faction like Engineers is going to be playable by everybody at a really high level. But I think certainly if George feels like they're a big comfort pick for him, then he might try to use the fact that, maybe the others are less hesitant or more hesitant to play that faction, or to rely on the fact that, Engineers seem like people have been bidding them down past where they should probably be, which has been another interesting aspect of the tournament so far.
All right, so the game is just starting, and we have the track here already. We have the interesting track. I mean, Temple Round 2 is always an interesting feature, because the standard opening by all accounts is to build your temple round 1. And having the temple in the round 2 kind of asks you the question, do you want to delay that and risk losing Earth 1 to maybe another strategy? So, for example, the Stronghold, the Dwelling Rush, some kind of half Dwelling Rush when you start trading posts. So I'm always curious when I see the temple in round 2. I find that it opens up a lot of possibility. Any feature of the track that strikes your attention? Yeah.
I also think that the Temple Round 2 is interesting. Of course, it's also a feature that you find is usually pretty good for Engineers. They can sometimes strive for getting a temple and 2 dwellings in round 1 with the double spade action, and then build a second temple in round 2, and that's very frequently something that they naturally want to do. It's the kind of thing that you would think cultists could do pretty easily. Fakirs, like a lot of factions, can build that second temple in round 2 and then proceed with the rest of their game plan. But I mean, you're really the master of these faction selection setups. So I wanted to ask you if there was anything about the bonus tiles that was particularly striking in this setup for you.
Yeah, I think bonus tiles here. There's 3 scoring bonus tiles. The only one missing is the Stronghold Sanctuary bonus tile. To me, it points a lot toward cultist. I mean, the coins cult and com in round 1 is really, really good for them. As you pointed out, the temple in round 2 is something that they want to do, because you want to go tall with cultist a little bit at least, because you get rewarded for every building that you do. Cultists usually do they want to build tall, but not their big building. They want to go for a second temple early, and they will be more likely to build trading post early. So that third round event for them, to me, looks pretty good for the trading post. Since they build their tall buildings late, if at all, the fact that there's no Stronghold Sanctuary bonus is not bad for them. So if that's a game without auction, I will be all in cultists in this one. Now with auction, of course, again, it's not so much a matter of what is the best faction, but what faction do you feel that you can have a comparative advantage to others. So and because of the nature of cultist, how much it depends on whether others accept leech or not. I will be very keen for maybe, I don't know if you can talk of underdogs with such strong players, but for Ginooo and George, who are maybe less favorite if we look at the stats for people, what they said, I think that cultists can be a very interesting choice.
And we see our first pick is Ranior has selected Witches, which I think is a pretty classic Ranior pick in this instance. For those that don't know, Ranior is a player that favors big early economy games and then translate those into points later. And I think that he's probably thinking back-to-back dwelling scoring in round 6 is not particularly a high points setup, so he wants a faction with good internal scoring, and then something like Witches really suits his style of pushing a very big economy early on and then scoring a lot of points later on, and the way that they can score multiple points off of towns is maybe something that he has in mind. And now we also see that Ginooo has put mermaids in the second position. So Zoras, you have any thoughts on what the strength of mermaids is here?
It's funny because those two factions, witches and mermaids, there are two factions that usually build their dwelling early mid-game. So to me, it's not a super good match with the late dwelling scorings. Usually by round 5 and 6, you have pretty much all your dwelling outs for these two factions. I don't expect a big score on the late events for them. The witches pick, I suppose... maybe it was with Dwelling Rush in mind. I think with the Double Spade, it's not as good as with the Dwelling event, but with the Double Spade, not the Double Spade, but the Spade event in round 1, it's still possible to go with Dwelling Rush, but it's possible that mermaids were put in with the same kind of frame of mind to go for a Dwelling Rush. So there might be some competition for the shipping bonus early on. Because the idea is, again, temple is round 2, so that's one more incentive to not build a temple, to not go for your temple round 1 and go rather Dwelling Rush and delay until round 2 until you do your temple. You can take water 1 and use the third round for doing a lot of trading posts. So I believe that those two first pick, Ranior and Ginooo, might have been with kind of the same game plan in mind. Start with Dwelling Rush in round 1, go for the Temple with Water 1 in round 2, and build trading posts in round 3, which I think is a very reasonable game plan here.
Right.
And Cultist here, not a surprise, I think.
Right, yeah.
Only surprise might be that it's Nerdcube who put them in, but we saw that it was his best faction, so he's playing on his strength. And I think,
especially with green and blue already in, and so no real color disadvantage for cultists this late I think this is pretty good for them. And now we see that Fakirs is selected in 4th seat, so I think my early takeaway here is that cultists have to be the best faction, but I'm not certain by how many points, and that's the artfulness of the auction system, is that now we get to see how the players determine which the comparative advantage between the factions. And so Nerdcube has a fantastically comprehensive post on Board Game Geek where he goes through his process of deciding on this comparative advantage, and so we can expect, I think, a really analytical approach from him. I know that you do a very similar thing when you play your game, Zora. So early on, what's your impression of the sort of numerical split?
Yeah, I think Nerdcube is, you're absolutely right to reference his post there, I think, and this is so him, right? The Nerdcube, he has a cube as an avatar, it's all right angles and straight lines. It's a player who's really, really analytical, one of the most analytical in the game, and that's really, really a strength, I think. Here, I would say first thing for any game that you want to look for bidding is color matchup. And it's kind of an interesting one where you have two factions that are a color neighbor, so green and blue, and brown and yellow. Question here, often I would think that Mermaid and Witches kind of split the board better than Cultist and Fakirs. Often for Fakirs, the fact of having Cultist in E6, we have the overlay here, having Cultist in E6 can be kind of a pain for them. It kind of block the middle town, can make things more complicated. There's always the possibility that cultists start all east, so on F5 and F7. And same for mermaids. So will they start D2 and E4 trying to go for a split of the map? So there's very different dynamics in color. For example, if cultists decide to start all east, which is less likely because there's no gray faction. So I'm probably gonna take that back. Without gray faction, I expect cultists to start E6, meaning that Fakir's game is gonna be harder.
And we see that all of the early bids here for mermaids. So the players have, it seems, all coordinated on the fact that there's something about this color matchup that is very strong for mermaids, and it's usually, I think, that blue and yellow play very well with one another. They support each other well in terms of leech, and they give each other good opening tempo in that sense, that they generate a lot of power, and then mermaids just probably have a better game plan to execute over the course of this track than fakirs, and that's what the reasoning is. But I don't know. Do you think there's something more to that, or that's just what it is?
Well, as I often like, the question that you'd want to ask when you uncover tracks is what kind of game plan or building order will help you to follow the track and build the thing in the order that the track suggests to you. And as I said, going Dwelling Rush, the mermaids have a pretty straightforward plan for at least the three, even I would say the 4 first round. So it seems that it really well matches with the building of a Dwelling Rush, and with yellow in the game, it makes it even more interesting. I'm not surprised that people are starting to bid on Cultists. With 10 points difference, I thought that Cultists were a favorite. Now it's a lot closer. Because Cultists, with the coins event, the coin income in round 1, are a really, really strong faction. So they can benefit from that more than anyone else. I expect Fakirs to go last here. I think that without black factions, witches are a little stronger, because usually no one... It can happen, but there's a lot less chance that they get blocked on G6 when they start their expansion for the East Town. So, and usually witches can kind of... I mean, probably blue will play more in the west, so I don't expect this to be a big problem for witches. C4 seems a fine starting spot. If you start C4 and F4, I believe that you have an interesting game, even without the Dwelling Rush opening.
Right, and with the amount of bids that are going in for mermaids right now, it seems clear that the players are all convinced that that witches will not get in mermaids' way this game. So I think it seems like they all have the same idea about where they're going to start with mermaids, or they have some thoughts about avoiding bumping into witches in a way that creates problems for their games. So I think by that same token, eventually someone's going to bid on witches with the same sort of idea that maybe this is a game where they can play around the mermaids in a way that's not super detrimental.
But then 15 points different on witches. I mean, witches has to be given some consideration here. I will not be surprised to see players starting to bid on witches right now.
Right, but very interestingly, GeorgeShortwell has just bid on fakirs for 30, so the possibility exists now for somebody to grab witches also at 30, or to keep bidding. It's very interesting now. The bidding has taken quite a twist.
I know George really likes fakirs, so it's not a surprise that he jumped the gun on them. I think, to me, as I said, I prefer witches in the setup to fakirs. I think that brown being in the game gives you some trouble, especially when you know that they won't start all east. So let's see about that, how it turns out. And yeah, I think, to me right now, both cultists and witches look like good deals. I know on the chat, someone was saying, I think it was FireX was saying that mermaids seems a bit overbid right now, and I kind of agree. I think the bidding has been aggressive for mermaids. I like their game plan again, but at 15 it starts to be a little low. So we have some further bid on fakirs. That's interesting.
Yeah, it seems like the table have some plans for what fakirs can accomplish, and that nobody is presently confident in playing a strong game with witches. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm very curious now to it would be very interesting to hear from the competitors after the game about what has pushed them towards Fakirs, because I was pretty persuaded by your comments just now, and I also thought that Witches seemed like would be in a slightly better spot than Fakirs, but the bidding presently disagrees.
Yeah, there's one thing to say for Fakirs is late dwelling rounds are usually good for them. They're gonna extend shipping, maybe in round 4 or something. In not shipping, but their range, and they're gonna start exploiting the yellow hexes from there. So that's kind of, again, a common game plan with them. Question though will be like how many of these hexes will still be there with cultists in the game. So it's gonna be the big question.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that, I mean, this is a game where both the temporary shipping and shipping victory point pass tiles are present in the game. And obviously that's going to be very, very strong for mermaids. It almost always is. But factions like Witches and Cultists can opt for strategies where they increase their shipping early. Especially Cultists, I think, can sometimes get to
Absolutely.
2 and 3 shipping and then compete aggressively for that tile. And of course, Fakirs don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, you cannot be more right about that. I think the thing is, that Cultists, that Fakirs are not going for the pass shipping bonus. You know that if mermaids are going for Dwelling Rush, they might not go for it for a while, or that might not be like their favorite bonus for a while. And Witches usually the kind of advance their shipping later. They like to take a lot of expansion through digging and temporary shipping, and sometimes their stronghold, but probably not in this game. But meaning that I think the shipping bonus is the pass shipping bonus is wide open for cultists, and it's perfectly aligned with their strategy because they're gonna grab a ton of coins early on. I mean, the two first events are coins events. You're gonna do a second temple in round 2 that's gonna give you priest income that's gonna feed the shipping strategy. So I expect to have cultists going for second temple, priest, the pass shipping bonus, maybe in round 3, get a fast expansion and kind of capitalize on the shipping bonus. I think, to me, cultist at 21 right now, it's Ranior who has them. It's really, really a deal, I think, in this setup.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. And my guess is that the rest of the table is feeling some amount of reservation about cultists because without gray and black, but especially without gray in the game, cultists may have access to less leech in the early game than they normally would, less free cult steps. And so maybe people are thinking that there are ways for the dwelling placements to go so that cultists have an unusually low amount of leech, and then that might hamper their game. I'm not convinced of that, but this is an unusual color wheel setup, and especially the lack of gray being in the game, I think, does create an interesting dynamic for the cultists to have to play around.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because as we said too, probably if witches want to block mermaids taking their C4 hacks, there's a lot of possibility that they decide to start C4 rather than E9. So if witches don't start E9, it means that cultists get left alone on the East Island, meaning that they don't have as much leech early on. So that's a very good point. And they could even have difficulty having a neighbor for their second temple, if that's the way they want to go. I mean, you want a second temple in round 2. The question is, where is this temple be? Do you dig the E5 hex to be able to do it there, thinking that you might be able to get the D4 hex later for a town? If it was Nomad, I would be all for it. I think that would be a very good point. With Fakirs, though, there's always the possibility that they will jump on D4 before you can grab that hex. So, I think you have there very, very good point that with these color maybe cultists should be taken with a little more cautious than I was suggesting.
I do think that it is a little bit. I mean, this is all it's very theoretical right now. I think one of the interesting things we're seeing about the bidding is how drastically differences in the opening dwelling placement can affect how the game plans for these factions go. So I think that's a very that's not always the case. For example, we're talking about gray a lot. Because gray factions almost always start on E7 and F6, having a gray faction in the game creates slightly more predictability about where initial dwellings are going to go. I think that a lot of what we're seeing in this bidding that is difficult to predict comes down to the players having diverging thoughts about where the initial dwellings are going to end up, and therefore what the early game plans are going to entail. And I think, I mean, if we look at the Twitch chat, Lumen asks, I think very importantly, so who gets double dig? So which faction is going to end up with the 6-power double spade action in round 1? Because that's usually a very important consideration. And it seems to me like mermaids will, and maybe that's also pushing the bidding on mermaids down further. These players thinking that mermaids are going to do fine with the double dig and no Earth 1.
Yeah, if you go for a dwelling rush with mermaids, as I said, I think there's a lot of reason to believe that you get the shipping bonus and no one can stop you really from the double dig. So it seems pretty. If that's the plan, again, I love that plan. I think it's a very good plan for them. Then you can expect mermaids to get double dig. Then, I mean, is there a chance that mermaid don't go dwelling rush? I mean, I suppose they could consider going all west and do some kind of semi-dwelling rush, maybe like dwelling rush without the shipping bonus. I suppose that's a possibility too, because and we have our faction here.
Yep.
So nerdcubes get witches for 30. I think it's a great deal. One thing about nerdcube is he's really trying to play every faction, and recently we've seen him experimenting with giants, and it gives him a lot of flexibility in the auction to go for the better deal because he knows that he can play everything really. Right. And I often feel that nerdcubes gets great deal through the auction, and I think that he got a really good deal in this one. So
yeah, I agree. It's a big strong point of his.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Ranior with Cultists at 21. Again, if she can't get by the initial difficulty of Cultist that I pointed out, like that you showed me that they might not have any neighbors. And you see, so we have Nerdcube putting his very first dwelling on the... that is C4, on the C4 hacks.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting.
That sends a message to me. It sends the message that to kind of pushing mermaids to start all west on D2 and E4, because it clearly states that he's not going to let him pass there. And it also tell everyone that Ranior is not going to get leech or neighbor on the East Island. So kind of a statement already. It's interesting to see these two factions, meaning that Ginooo and Shortwell has the two factions that are the most able to cooperate here. Will George be tempted, for example, to go for an all East, to give all his leech to Ginooo, trying to be more kind of away from the two other players? I mean, that's kind of the strategy that you can imagine here too, right?
Right, yeah. I think it would be very interesting to see George sort of pair up with Ginooo all the way in the west and sort of ignore the far side of the board. We do see Ranior placing his two cultist dwellings where cultists normally place, but it does look like he's going to be quite lonely on that far east island for a while. Now, witches almost always will make their way over there. There are some quite easy towns for witches to form on the east, but they probably won't be starting there, which is, I think, quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We have to expect the next dwelling to witches in the middle. I mean, I don't think there's other option, and we'll see how it unfolds from there. I was pulling the stats from this matchup, so there's a website for kind of that has the Snellman stats, as it's been already mentioned in past game. Can put it on the chat here. The tool now and the tool now tool, and it's actually giving giving witches an edge in this matchup. But there's very, very few games. I think there's only 3, so it's hard to base any complete judgment on that. But you can be sure. I know, like for example, nerdcube used this site a lot in this building. So it's interesting to see that in these 3 games, that's witches which came up on top.
Right, which for what it's worth does add to your earlier assertion that nerdcube managed to get a very good deal in this auction. So that, those 2 bits of data fit very well together.
Yeah, absolutely.
We see George taking almost all of his time in deciding where to place this second dwelling, and he goes for the center. Okay.
He goes center. So maybe the first big decision: does he go all west or does he go center? And yeah, we'll see. Probably if he gets the double dig, like does he start by digging this green hex? Does he start with the shipping bonus, for example, to do a dwelling rush, but also to take it away from witches? Because if witches get the shipping bonus, he could maybe kind of get on C3 before mermaids. So to me, it probably indicates that George is going for the shipping bonus. I would think.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think. I fully agree with you. I don't see any way that George places his second dwelling on D5 and then doesn't take the temporary shipping bonus tile. That almost had. I would be very confident in saying that it would be a quite big mistake if he did anything else. It just leaves his hexes too vulnerable.
Yeah, it certainly looked to me like the logical follow-up from his choice here. Bonus selection, always interesting. Fakirs get the spade. So that's one thing we didn't talk about either. Fakirs being in the 4th seat means that they might, if no one else sacrifice anything, they are the one who's not getting Earth 1. But here I think it's very likely that witches will go for the dwelling rush. Mermaids is going for the dwelling rush, and if they don't, then witches will be going for the dwelling rush. So I think that there's a pretty high chance that Fakirs end up with both the spade bonus and Earth 1, which is good for them.
I agree.
Good. Yeah.
Of course, Ginooo also, just as a bit of player preference, Ginooo did mention in his pre-tournament interviews and so on that he likes to try to play games without using Earth 1, and he likes taking an economic favor tile in round 1 instead. But in this case, I think that if he does get the opportunity to take Earth 1, then it's probably the better line. But I don't know, maybe you see some economic favor that he could reasonably take instead. I know Fakirs like Air 2 a lot. They like Earth 2 sometimes. Fire 1, but not in games with the landscape. What do you think about that possibility? Just skipping Earth 1 anyway.
Well, a lot will depend on Mermaid's decision. If Mermaid's decision is going Dwelling Rush, with the Temple round 2, we may see all other factions going for an economic favor tile as their first pick. Because if Mermaid is going Dwelling Rush, you know that Earth 1 has little value for him, and then maybe you think that you're going to go for Earth 1 in round 2 with your second temple. So I think that's a possibility too. We see him opening with the double spades, which again kind of all go together with the dwelling rush strategy here. And he's building the dwelling too. So he's not kind of keeping open the question of whether or not he's gonna go afterward temple. It seems to me that he's going all in for a dwelling rush, but we'll see.
Yeah, it certainly does appear that that George is following pretty closely the line that you laid out, which I think is still a very productive line for mermaids to take. So if they follow this trajectory, then they're still shaping up to have a quite good game. And I think the question now is, since they were bid down as low as 14, if that game plan will be enough. So it'll be interesting to see how things progress.
Yeah, that will be like really the big intrigue in this game. The big story here is with starting so low and having probably not that much in terms of late game scoring for mermaids, because usually by then mermaids rarely do a ton of dwellings in round 5 and 6. Will they kind of be able to get carried enough by their early scoring in order to take this? So kind of that's will be one of the storyline to follow in this game. Interesting here, Fakir's choose to upgrade west. So it makes sense because with Cultist there, it has more chance to want his town on the west. The town in the center is almost impossible with Cultist there. So, and also is interesting because it's denying leech to Cultists and Nerdcube, and here Cultists and Witches, and also Ranior and Nerdcube, so 2 favorites of the table, to give it to George instead. So that's interesting on that account too, in terms of strategy here.
Right. Yeah, and it's always interesting to consider how much meta strategy and consideration factors into player decision making. I do think in this case that it's a little bit hard to say one way or the other, because as you correctly pointed out, the safer place for Ginooo to build this temple, assuming he's only building one, is over on the west, because that'll more likely become his sanctuary, and then that will be where his sanctuary town is. But from a Mets perspective, one thing that we didn't talk about is that this side of the bracket is very interesting because the best second place position that allows for advancement into the next round is almost certainly already occupied by Klæbo from your group stage game. And so whereas on the other side of the bracket, the players have more of an incentive to consider coming second but getting very close to first, on this side of the bracket, it's really just about winning your game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. I mean, on the other side, you can kind of play safe. You can go for a faction that you think is going to win, but if it not, she'll finish high. But here you have to be all in. I mean, you have to get the win because of the rule of the tournament and because of the first game of the first group. These players know that pretty much the only way to advance here is to win. So you have to be all in. You have there's no other option than winning for these players right now.
So we see that Nerdcube ends up with the single spade action. One thing about this that I think is interesting is that when I was thinking about Cultist opening position, one of the things about placing in the East that's still just always generically strong for Cultists is that they have access to this 2 brown hexes for 1 single spade. But now that Cultists don't get any of the spades in the first round, their economy is not in a particularly good spot. And it looks like Ranior probably didn't want to do that, so he must have an idea about surviving without these 2 dwellings being down in round 1. But I'm interested as to what could provide enough of an upshot that he would not have gone for the single spade action.
Yeah, it's good point. I think if I am correct, he could have jumped for this on the second spade on his first action. I prefer to upgrade probably for trying to maximize leech. He will have an interesting economy nevertheless because he's gonna have tons of coins early on. He went for the priest action, so the priest action here worth 5 coins. It's the first priest on the track that's gonna give 3 coins, and then it's worth 2 coins for round 2. So he's gonna have that much. Now, Joe, can he suffers from not having any spade in round 1? Absolutely. You'll have to kind of make up for it later somehow. So maybe getting the double spade will be huge for him in round 2, but it's not even clear that he's going to get it. We've seen just an interesting choices from Nerdcube, right? Going a second trading post. It's kind of an unusual choice. Why do you think he went for
that? I was about to ask you the same thing. This second trading post is bewildering to me in a way that I'm having very much difficulty understanding what the motivation for it is. I was hoping you had some idea, but I've never seen this sort of play before. So I really have no idea what Nerdcube is up to.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised too. I mean, the obvious thing is that he wants to go for 2 temples in round 2, and he's delaying them, thinking that since Mermaid is going Dwelling Rush, there is no pressure to go for your Earth 1 temple. So, however, if you look at his income, right now he won't have enough workers for going to temple. So he has to pass for a worker, and that's just what he's done. He's just passed for the worker that goes with the trading post bonus. So what he wants to do is do 2 temples next round. I expect, so one should be with Earth 1, and the second one, I'm not sure, maybe Earth 2. It will be interesting to see what he goes for.
Yeah.
But the problem, so he's scoring 4 more points. Not getting workers early on, I think, is not ideal. And also, he's not getting a priest, and the priest here will be quite interesting because it gives you 2 coins income from the income event in round 2, and it helps you to hit the 3 spots. Right now, it means that the 3 spots are quite open for cultists, and I mean, cultists will have a very strong cult game right now. He has a bit of a rough start not getting a spade, but cult, I mean, fakirs are not a big cult faction. Mermaids going Dwelling Rush means they're not doing much on cult. We've seen that in Sprocket's game where he was alchemist, and no one had priest production, and it let him because Mermaid went for Dwelling Rush and fakirs were in the game. So you have kind of a similar situation in Sprockets with alchemists who are not renowned as a cult faction, won all cults in this setup. Here, you have a cult faction who has the cult wide open. I mean, Mermaid is not producing priests, Witches is not producing priests in the round 1, and Fakirs will want to use them to jump. So I feel that that's giving him some kind of an edge.
Yeah, and so I think obviously now that we've thought about it a little bit more, it's obvious that Nerdcube is going for this 2 temples during the temple round. But I think I agree with you that the comparative advantage of producing priests earlier in the game and competing for at least a couple of the cults with the priest bonuses, not to mention the extra 2 coins from the round 2 scoring bonus, to me seems like it's worth skipping out on the 4 points in that case. So it's clear that Nerdcube has realized that he can pass without having completed a temple and still get Earth 1. But to me, I would have thought that it would have been better to build a temple in this round, take an economic favor, and then pass on the same turn that he passed, because you build a temple instead of the turn that he builds the second trading post. And then you build your second temple next round. So I think I do agree with you there that I prefer the priest production over scoring the second temple in round 2. But let's see how it goes. Let's see what difference it makes. I do think that that's a spot to highlight for later in the game. Like, that's the kind of very early decision that I think makes a fair bit of difference down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one way to look at it is that the trading post is producing 2 coins, and the priest to a cult will produce 2 coins to cult income for the next round, and he doesn't need this coin right now. So you're losing a worker income to get nothing in the end as a net gain, and not get the priest to a three spots. And also you're getting 1 power from the trading post, but if you went for an economic favor as you suggested, you will have 4 rather than 1. So economically, I find it very hard to justify, and I find that to get 4 points out of it is probably not enough in my estimation.
Right. So,
but we'll see. It will be. I mean, we have to know, and one thing that I realize playing and commenting is when you're playing, you're focusing on the one faction and you have a lot of lines in your head. So I think with the strength of nerdcube, we kind of have to trust his judgment on this one, that he thought this through. But I'm really curious to see how he will follow up with it.
Yeah, I agree. And we see Ginooo passing here for the VP scoring tile, which, as I mentioned before the game started, Fakirs have no use for when it comes to scoring points because they don't have a shipping value. So Ginooo is taking this merely for the 3 power that it offers, and that is a very clear telegraph that he's trying to take Act 6, the double spade action in round 2, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a little surprised to see that Fakirs and Cultists didn't follow nerdcube's lead here, recognizing that Earth 1 was no rush to take. They both went for Earth 1. And, I mean, especially, it means that Cultists... they don't get an economic favor in round 1. They don't get the double spade. They got no spade in round 1. They don't get the double spade in round 2. At least they pass for the spade bonus. That's the one thing that's kind of saving them. But otherwise, I would say it's a terrible start for Cultist. The other thing that saves him is the other players leaving the cult for him. So that's a good aspect of his game right now.
Right, yeah.
So not surprisingly, nerdcubes go for Earth 1 here.
Right, and so that means that mermaids will miss out on Earth 1, but after the Dwelling Rush opening, I'm sure it's something that GeorgeShortwell anticipated happening for his game. So it'll be interesting to see if he opts for... Yeah. He'll almost certainly build a temple this round, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of favor tile he opts for. My guess is that he'll go straight for Water 1, with the intention of building a few trading posts next round to capitalize on the trading post scoring and to balance out his economy. I'm wondering if you think that there's an alternative.
Exactly.
To him.
Yeah, I suppose you could consider Fire 1 here, just to kind of balance the dwelling economy. But in his place, I'm trying to find alternatives, but I think that your idea is what I would go for too. So you go for a temple with Water 1, and you know what? Probably with mermaids, that's what I do, even if Earth 1 is still there. That's why I feel like there wasn't such a rush to get Earth 1 in this game. And even if you end up not getting Earth 1, because mermaid make the strange decision to go for it, there's still enough ways to score in this game to kind of make up for it, because there's a lot of passing tiles. I mean, it's not such a big risk. It's a high reward. I mean, getting an economic favor to start with, I think, is really, really good. So,
right.
Yeah, a little surprised about this.
We see that George
One thing
takes the coins here. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to mention that George took the coins and ended up below 6 power already. So maybe you won't.
Yeah, that's
like I was gonna ask you how you feel about him locking himself out of the double spade action this early in the game.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it probably means that he is confident in his worker economy and expects to hard dig a lot. It gives him a formidable start. I mean, in terms of resources, it's really, really a lot. Not getting the double spade, I mean, I'm curious to see how it will go on. I don't think I have a definitive evaluation on that. It might turn out all right, but he still has a lot of digging to do. I mean, if he wants to go 3 towns, he has a lot of digging to do. So not getting the double spade has its cost, but and it makes me wonder too if he's planning to go 2 temple in this round. Is that a possibility? Is that why he needs so much coins? So yeah, very curious to see how he follows up on that.
We see nerdcube here taking quite a decent amount of time to make his decision concerning his second favorite tile. Do you have any preliminary thoughts on which favorite tile he should go for in this case?
To me, my instinct with witches is that you want to have digs because you want to have town, that when there is a cult income for air cults, you want to focus the air. So to me, that is just take air 2, and that's what I would have gone to for right. 2. I think it's where you want to be with witches. One thing interesting to follow is where Ryan uses his spade. Does he use it center in order to do his second temple? Or does he use it on the east in order to build 2 dwellings with it? I would expect center here because I know Ryan really loves 2 temples, and here with the cults completely open, I will expect him to follow up on the strategy, and also with the possibility that I pointed out earlier about using the shipping strategy for cultists. So right. I expect Ranior to dig the E5 hex and build a second temple there. Yeah, that's what he does. And as favorite tile, I will expect him to go to Earth 1 to kind of compensate for missing out on the early spades, so for his worker income.
Right. Yeah, I think that would also be a very good pick for Ranior. And then we'll see that what'll almost certainly be the case is that mermaids will have 1 copy of Water 1, but that will be the only copy that's as yet taken. So one thing that I think is very interesting that I've only started to really become conscious of in Terra Mystica recently is not just the timing for whether or not you get Earth 1 in a game, but also the timing surrounding taking Water 1. So in this case, there's a bit of tension on the track because there's a trading post scoring round coming up right after this round, but then there's the Sanctuary Stronghold scoring round in round 4. So that's the round where you might see players taking another favorite tile, and that's when they would acquire Water 1 in most cases. But then, of course, whatever trading posts they maybe build next round won't score quite as well. So do you think that maybe the trading post round next round is the kind of trading post scoring where players that haven't done a Dwelling Rush like Mermaid should probably skip out on it, think about not building any trading posts, just working on their worker economy via dwellings, and then get Water 1 in round 4 on their Sanctuary as an additional way to score going into the end game? Or what do you think about those Water 1 timings?
I think you're absolutely right that especially with the temple event in round 2, You don't want to build up too much. I mean, if cultists maybe had more dwellings on the board, they could consider. But I'm pretty confident that cultists won't focus trading post next turn. They will really want to go 2 ships and try to build some dwellings on. I mean, and as for Fakirs, this probably doesn't have enough worker economy neither. And because of his landscape, it doesn't want that many trading posts and witches. He doesn't have even any neighbor for a trading post. So I expect that we will see George with mermaids here taking kind of an important point lead early on, because he will be the only one benefiting from this trading post event in round 3. And just to follow up on I think your point is really spot on. That's actually often when I try to design my plan. That's one of the things that I always wonder is at what point am I going to build a trading post? And here, as you said, you have only one event, and it's an early one, meaning that if you want to use it, you probably do it without Water One, unless you have Mermaid's game plan, which was the Dwelling Rush, which is why I like this plan from the start. It's kind of very in the right or in an order of building that other player cannot respect. So it seems to me that it's a very good point on that account. Other faction will definitely wait for it's so another point on Terra Mystica. It's usually a much better way to build your economy on dwelling rather than on trading post. It's much more efficient to build dwelling than to build trading post in order to build your economy. So if you want to have some economy to be able to build more stuff later, in round 3, most of these players will want to get some dwelling down. Waiting for round 5 to get dwellings is just too late. You want to get them earlier. So yeah, I expect that apart from mermaids, we will see mainly dwellings next round. And again, for any really of these player, I would think that it's probably a mistake to go for a trading post at this point in round 2.
Yeah,
one other question that we will have here. Yeah. Do you have any idea what favorite tile Fakirs are going to pick with their second temple?
Yeah, and so it's because of this interesting tension around when players will pick up Water 1 that I was thinking, well, might one of these factions with their second temple just go for Water 1 immediately so that they don't have to worry about it later on? I think that Ginooo taking Air 2 like he just has is a much better play from him, and that he can probably pick up Water 1 later. The only faction that I wouldn't be surprised to see taking Water 1 immediately is Cultists, but I do agree with you that I think I'd prefer to see something like Earth 2, because Cultists have very little early worker production because they only have 1 dwelling presently on the board. I'm seeing a lot of comments in chat, and I think I agree with them that I'm a little bit worried about Ranior's expansion in the upcoming rounds, because getting to 2 shipping and then building a good amount of dwellings is going to rely on getting access to spades, and then also getting access to the B2 hex is frequently one that cultists are going to want, or B3, so that they can expand in the north quite a bit, and Fakirs might be able to cut them off at B2. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I'm not sure exactly how those considerations pull and tug and affect which favorite tile Ranior might take here with the second temple. But yeah, there's just a lot happening already.
Yeah, and it's a good point about B2. Also B3. I mean, it's very possible that mermaids want this hex very bad. So if because it gets them a city there and blocks cultists. So the north might be an unfriendly place for cultists in this game. And so, however, I mean, cultists will have the East Island almost to themselves, probably witches will come there at some point to give them a neighbor. So on the long run, I expect cultists to be fine, as long as he can get some early dwellings on. I was wondering, he sent his priest to fire. I was wondering if he might consider go 3 ships next turn, and that would have been the explanation for this priest action. So he's going for the fire thing. And one thing that also pops to mind here is that, the worker action are taken. I was wondering if cultists might want to go single spade in worker action to take 2 hexes in the east, but I don't know. I mean, right now he cannot go for the worker action. It probably doesn't worth it. So kind of interesting to see how Ranior will follow up. I'm pretty sure that he will go for the shipping bonus if it's still available. And advances shipping. I'm pretty sure that's the plan. I mean, he has still 6 coins left after this temple, and he's making 6 coins just from his priest in the contract, so he's having a very good coin economy already. And what is he going for here? I would expect her to, but we'll see. Other interesting thing is that Mermaid did go for a second temple in Fire 1, which means he goes for Fire 1.
Yeah, wow,
that's a kind of surprise.
Yeah, I'm very surprised by that myself. I mean, it is true that after this round, well, obviously Ranior's coins next round are going to be fine because he already has 3 priest cults, and the cult bonus for the round is 2 coins per priest. But maybe after that he's thinking that coins are going to be very important, and then there's only the 6 coin bonus tile, and so maybe he has things mapped out in a way that he thinks Fire 1 here is justified. It also does, on this particular round, give him 2 power because he was already at the 4 spot. So this does allow him the possibility of doing what you just said, of taking, he can't take, I guess he could take Act 5 and then he could convert power to a worker. That doesn't seem particularly good because the worker action is already taken. But yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very surprised by Fire 1 here. We'll see. It will be, again, I think it's important to stress out that it's a very different feeling to just play one faction focusing on it. So I'm sure that he has a plan with it. He has calculated something. The way that I will explain it is that he wants to go to 3 ships and it takes a lot of coins. And he's thinking that he has more chance hitting the worker action than the coins action. So, for next round. So maybe that's what's motivating his move here. He must not be very happy with the fact that Mermaid passed for the shipping bonus. I'm pretty sure he had his eyes on this one. And also it's interesting to see that he got a big cult advantage early on, but now everyone has 2 temples, meaning that he is threatened. He will be challenged on the cult at some point. So maybe he felt that advancing on the fire cult was more important than on the earth cult, that it's pretty certain that he's going to win because there's no other income from this cult. So and he's so much in advance already that he's not going to be threatened. So maybe the 1 bump on the fire cult was one of the factors that directed him to this favorite child rather than the other. It will be interesting to see how he follows up with it.
Yeah,
you see him taking some time here. He was expecting the past shipping bonus. I'm pretty sure that was the plan, and now he has to see how he adapt not having it. I think that's what's happening.
I wanted to double back and talk a little bit about this second temple from mermaids because Fire 1 was selected from mermaids as well. But one of the things that we were just talking about is whether or not mermaids would build a few trading posts next round, and it seems like with having already taken Water 1 that was a very good possibility. So do you think that this second temple for Fire 1 is worth it for mermaids, or that they might have just ignored that and just built another trading post next round?
Yeah, my instinct, as I said, was to go for a trading post next round. But there's definitely a lot of reasons to go for 2 temples. First, it gives them more presence in the cult. It gives them more opportunity to advance shipping, to use the past shipping bonus, since this is in the game. As we've seen in the Retarded Donkeys game this weekend, he was able to build 2 temples first round and was really able to exploit that with this later on. So I suppose that's what he's thinking right now. And will be again. We have here so many early decisions that are very that has such heavy bearing on what's going to happen afterward. It's already a super exciting game, I find.
Yeah, and so
by the way, who do you think? Are you able after 2 rounds to rank the factions here? Who will you say has the leads?
I think that at the moment, I'm starting to come around to the opinion of the players on the table, and I think that mermaids are in a quite fine position. There's still a lot that they want to accomplish, but that they seem like they're able to accomplish. I like Witch's position more than I thought that I would at this stage as well, because I think that Witches can also increase shipping a couple of times and start putting down extra dwellings, and that there might be a lot of opportunity for them later in the game, because it seems like they will get access to spots for 3 towns. I'm an extremely bad Fakirs player, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how I feel about Fakir's position specifically. With respect to cultists, I think that some of it just depends on what Fakirs ends up doing. If cultists get easy access, and mermaids, if cultists gets easy access to the north in a way that they can form a town later and allows for a lot of expansion from cultists, then I think I'd like their spot a lot more. But it's possible that their expansion gets halted in a way that all of the places that they expand to have no neighbors, and then that makes their life considerably more difficult going forward, and I'm not sure how I would evaluate them in that case. What about you? What do you think?
To me, I like Mermaids games still. I think I will say that early on they are the faction that I think accomplished the most of their objectives. So I'm all with you here, saying that they have a very good game. They look to have a good game. You see Cultist won for the spades in the end and converted 3 power to a worker. A little surprised about that. I wonder if he was expecting not to get spades or something, because I would have expected him to wait for the double spade next round or something like that, which it will seems that he will get. So, I mean, yeah, cultists got tons of coins. They will be able to advance shipping. Still, it's not an ideal start for them. I feel that after Mermaids, I suppose Fakirs get more or less what he wants from a game where cultists are in right now. It looks fine. He has his hexes. He got some reach. He will probably be able to beat, I expect, Cultist North, but he has to hurry for that. And so I think that his game is going, but is going as the Fakir's games should be going. But I'm a bit with you on this one also, because I'm not much of a Fakir's player either. So hard to tell. But And yeah, I think you made very good points about witches. The fact that he's going 2 digs here. So yeah, we see Fakir's going for the Northern expansion. Yeah, I like Fakir's game. I think I will rank them second right now. And it's so hard to tell. I mean, I suppose witches going 2 ships and 2 more dwellings. I think you have to put witches before cultist and then cultist last right now. But I think it's still very, very close game. Still very anybody's game, really. So no one has like an awful start, and no one has like an absolute great lead. I think it's really still anybody's game right now.
Right, and one thing to say in favor of cultists is that even though everybody does have access to a lot of so this that hard dig from mermaids on B3 kind of is something we thought about, but is very bad for cultists, I think.
Yeah, I am not surprised here. I think there's a lot of reason to do that for mermaid. It's secured town spot. It's kind of hurt cultists a lot. You'll get some leeches from fakirs. I mean, there's a lot of reason to do that. You have plenty of workers. It means that he will just do 1 trading post, but I suppose if he wants to keep his worker economy, it's kind of was to be expected from his decision to go with another temple. So, yeah, kind of put cultists in a more difficult spot here, for sure.
So what I was going to say in favor of cultists is that despite the fact that everybody has 2 temples out, and so therefore there's a lot of priest production in the game, cultists have managed to secure the 3 spot on 3 of the cults, and their position on the cults it seems to be achieving the same sort of effect that a very early 2 key town does in some games, where it basically tells the other players, don't bother trying to fight me on these cults because I've already won them. So maybe the cultists
absolutely
are still going to get a lot of cult points from these early priests, despite how many priests are in the game. It remains to be seen, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and the don't bother factor, I like that expression. Is true for any faction who will get a lead on the cult, but it's even truer for cultists because it means that people will be more keen to accept leech from them because they accept already that they've won the cult. So this position on cults is very strong for cultists, and it will be interesting to see if it's enough to carry them through their kind of difficult start in terms of grabbing early territory. They are just about, I'm pretty sure nerdcube now with 2 ships is going to place next to them. And I kind of miscalculated. I think I didn't realize earlier that he had advanced shipping already. So he has enough to do 4 dwellings. I wonder if he will do just 3 in 1 trading post. I think that's very likely. So, yeah, at least cultists will get a neighbor in the east. And we'll see. I mean, if you're cultist right now, I mean, you're probably already thinking about forgetting about network, right? Connection is going to be hard, and even if you do connect, it's going to be hard to beat others on network because of this kind of slightly slower start. He's about to get 2 spades on water. It will be interesting to see how he used them. Since Fakirs didn't jump on D4, it's, I suppose, a possibility that he will go for the town in the middle.
Right, and it does seem like, he's passed he passed already, so I think that pretty much does telegraph what you were just saying, because he has no shipping. So these cult spades have to go next to where his structures already are. And it seems to me like he's thinking about just using both of them on the D4 spot, and hoping that, well, I mean, if he's not taking a power action, then he can build on it immediately, but if he wanted to take a power action, then the hope is that Fakirs don't jump on it on their first move. So maybe a bit of a high-risk move from Ranior, but I think he sees this town now as being much more important than he might have at the beginning of the round, even because so much of his expanding hexes have been eaten up by the other factions. He might feel like this town is now much more important.
Yeah, it's possible. He has the opportunity to do it, as you said. I mean, he's going to be first to play, so he's going to have the opportunity to put there, if he doesn't mind not doing a power action, to put his dwelling there before Fakir's turn there. So that's one thing to take into account too. I'm curious because you had here the opportunity to maybe, for example, send a priest to fire and use a double spade, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, because a double spade is still available this round. So he preferred to pass. And I wonder what that tells us about his intentions here. I would expect it means that he doesn't intend to go for... I mean, because he passed for the spade bonus, right? Wasn't it better to wait hoping for, I mean, say, the pass shipping bonus that he really wants? I'm a little surprised, honestly. Because he's producing 2 priests and he still has enough, even if he sent another one on the call. It will be... I'm curious to see how he's going to follow up with this.
Yeah, I agree with you. For sure. We see Nerdcube here following basically the plan that you had laid out. He does end up building next to cultists out in the east, so Ranior will very much be grateful for that additional point of adjacency. It seems like Nerdcube will build a trading post before passing. That will give him a very solid, very balanced economy. Still a bit short on coins, but a pretty balanced economy going forward. Fakirs is doing quite well. They have a lot of dwellings down. They don't have any trading posts, but one of the nice things about Fakirs with landscapes on is that they generate quite a bit of coins just from doing the carpet flights. So they're still in a fairly decent position with respect to coins. And then we see mermaids as well, ending the round with a similar balanced economy to what witches are going to have. But then witches actually have more points now than mermaids because mermaids were so bid down. So I wonder if that means that witches are looking even better than we had previously thought.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Witches are not doing bad. I mean, that round with the dwelling spree was good for sure. You have to remember that it doesn't have yet though the earth water one, which mermaid has, which he should be able to put on some news. Now he's going to be kind of solve his coin problems by passing for the 6 coin action, which is good for them too. I agree with you. I think witches are looking pretty good. But Fakirs too, I think, the more I look at it, he didn't do a trading post. He went for the other dwelling. Maybe that's what he decided to do when he said that he could pass for the 6 coin action. He decided to strengthen his worker economy. I was just about to say that I think Fakirs was looking pretty good. And I think that mermaids digging B3 was probably the happiest person about that was Fakirs, because it meant that it was cutting cultists from the north and it lets them do a town north. It lets Fakirs do a town north. So
right, yeah.
I think I would say I like Fakir's game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to really like Fakir's game. One thing about what Fakirs is up to that I'm struggling to find much justification for besides denying it to the other players is that Fakirs once again is on the ship scoring tile. despite the fact that all it does is generate 3 power for them. So I'm wondering if this is a pure denial play by Ginooo. I mean, the power is obviously still relevant, so it's not to say that the bonus tile does nothing, but you would imagine if Ginooo was thinking about doing this as a block or as a deny, that he would actually want to do that next round rather than this round or the previous round. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It is. Probably denial is on his mind. I mean, it's interesting tactics because one thing to say for that is a lot of players are in a position to exploit this bonus. It will be good for any of these 3 players right now, the shipping bonus. So I suppose that taking it is his idea of trying to kind of nerve the advantage the other can get from it. And when you look at the other bonus, the shipping bonus obviously will not have done more for him. The 1 worker, 3 powers is 1 worker more, but it's not a ton of difference, and probably doesn't get much out of the 1 worker and pass 2 points for trading posts. So I suppose there wasn't such a good alternative either. I'm sure if the dwelling bonus was available, I would expect him to go for it, but probably here he thought that with what was available to him, the pass shipping was not so much inferior that denying it to other players was worth it in this circumstance.
So we see here that Ranior's decision to build on the first move of the round, which we had talked about being something that he might have to do so that Fakirs didn't dig and jump into that spot on d4, has actually made it so that Ranior now misses out on Water 1, because we see both Ginooo and Nerdcube immediately building their sanctuaries and taking the remaining Water 1 tiles. So I think that if I'm Cultist right now, I am a little bit worried because my opportunities for late scoring in this game have now been diminished a substantial amount. Because now trading posts, which will be needed to refresh new dwellings, are now not on the table. Of course, Ranior only has 3 dwellings down at the moment, so maybe he's thinking that it's okay if he misses out on Water 1 because he's probably not building that many dwellings in the rest of the game. And he'll build his sanctuary here and take Air 1, which is something that I know he's also quite in favor of doing in a lot of cases. But it does seem, instinctively, I feel like it's a bad outcome that he doesn't have Water 1 and that it hurts his scoring going into the late game.
Yeah, I think he won't. I think if Water 1 was available, he was going for it. So it's one other thing that isn't going his way right now. On the bright side of having a difficult early start, he might be more able to build more dwellings later for the dwellings. He has more dwellings to build in other faction. So maybe we'll be able to exploit that a little better. But overall, I do agree with you that I'm a little concerned for Ranior right now.
On the other hand, so Gino's in a position where I think Gino's position is quite good. If I were him, what I would think would be appropriate here is building a trading post now to complete his sanctuary town and taking a range extension with the shipping town, because that opens up a tremendous number of hexes for Fakirs. He's already to a point where many of the hexes that he wants to move to are 2 spaces away from the dwellings and other structures that he has on the board. So he's going to need the range extension town very soon. And to me, it seems like this would be a very natural turn to complete that town, get the range extension, and then be able to fly around the map for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, I think you're quite right about that. And, we were wondering about this question. With Cultists in the game, how many of his yellow will disappear once he has extended his range? And right now, the answer is 0. I mean, all of his yellows are still there, which is another indicator that his game is going where he wants it to be. Again, he has another town spot available. It's looking good for Fakir's. I like Fakir's game. And on points, he's right there, right? It's Fakirs and Witches we are at. Mermaid's falling more and more behind. I'm curious to see how he follows up. He has the Past Dwelling bonus. I suppose he's going to do his Sanctuary for Air 1 here. But is he advancing shipping and trying to get these two lakes in the south? The one, for example, near nerdcube, which is if we can have the overlay, please, because I don't know them by heart. Thank you. It's the H4 hex. So yeah, will he try to advance shipping and beat? I don't know how much Witches won this hex anyway, but it will be nice for. It's one of these things where it's nicer for Mermaids than it is for Witches. So we'll see if that's his plan. Yeah, Sanctuary is predicted. I suppose everyone. One thing too here, Cultist went for the overkill in Cult, which I think he should have. He went for the 2-key town, meaning that he has a very kind of almost. I mean, you were saying either earlier Down Bother. I think at this point it's pretty clear, right, that all the cults except Air are going to Cultist.
Right.
And he has to, because he doesn't have much else. I mean, he really has to capitalize on these.
Right, so Mermaids do go Sanctuary Air 1, just as you predicted. Let's see now how Gino's playing out the rest of his round. I'm seeing a little bit on Twitch chat that a few players are fond of the idea of him taking the double spade and digging A6 and A7, so the red and brown hexes right at the top of the map. And that would have the effect of securing an additional town spot for him. I think that this is always one of those things that's very difficult to evaluate with Fakirs. One of their towns is usually mandatory because they would like to take the range extension town so that they can skip an extra hex when carpet flying. Beyond that, it's not clear how much value additional towns have versus just maximizing the number of carpet flights that you get out in the rest of the game. Of course, if a town falls into your lap and you can take it very easily, no one's going to say no. But I think that's always one of the more difficult calculations to make as a Fakirs player, is whether or not to stretch for another town versus just maximizing as many carpet flights as possible. And we see Ginooo does in fact go for the double spade here, so he is thinking about building this additional town. Yeah. I was wondering if he was gonna build it too. I mean, he could have decided to wait for building the dwellings for the dwelling round next turn. That was an option too. So keeping is kind of, because you still get the coins, you don't have to convert, and you can still, for example, do the trading post afterwards. So you didn't have necessarily to. You can kind of farm the carpet flight for coins here that you will use to do the trading post. I thought that might have been an interesting option for him. This way he has a better worker economy. And yeah, we see cultists taking this yellow. Of course, I'm sure Ginooo would have loved to have this one, but there was no way he was gonna get. Meaning that right now, I mean, that was another also reason for maybe considering holding on building, because then you can use carpet flight again, because right now it means that he has basically 4 yellows available for carpet flight, and since he has air 2, he might be able to dig some, but there's no extra yellows that he can reach through digging, or the path is very long to there.
So yeah, it would be. That's probably the one thing in Heroes game that is more worrying.
Okay, so and now Ginooo
Also-
passes for the trading post bonus. So he builds one dwelling, but not both, which is interesting. So he is saving
Yeah.
one dwelling for the purpose of scoring next round, but he did build one. So a bit of a hybrid between what you were saying and what he could have done. The trading post is obviously going to be a good bonus for him to have next round because he does want to free up a number of his dwellings for carpet flight purposes, and he only has 2 right now that he can build. So I think, but I do like this spot from Fakirs. They already have 53 points. They're going into back-to-back dwelling grounds. They do have 2 towns that still can be made, and they have at least 4. They have 4 guaranteed carpet flights, assuming cultists don't disrupt any of their other yellows. And like you said, they might be able to dig their way to 1 or 2 more, maybe even hard dig if their worker economy will allow for it. So I see Fakirs as having a quite good point ceiling here for the rest of the game. Yeah, and now their game seems very encouraging to me.
Yeah. It will be certainly interesting to see if he can continue on this game. One thing, it doesn't really have a power action. Sometimes the early passing is interesting when you can get the power action that you want. Also, I was hoping that the strategy with passing for the pass shipping bonus, which doesn't give him anything, as you said, was to hold on to it. If he could have been sure that he was passing last, it would have been much more valuable blocking strategy than here. Here he passed first. So it seems that rather than depriving other players for 2 rounds of the bonus, it's not as valuable as if he could have passed.
Right.
And probably good news for him is that it's Cultist who got it, so probably who is less threatening to him, I would expect.
Right. Although going into
less
round
threatening to him.
Right. Yeah, but going into round 6 now, the problem is that he's very out of position to take it back as another block because both witches and mermaids will play after cultists immediately, and so probably in the most important round to, for example, deny it to mermaids, Fakirs will be very out of position to do so. So I think that probably at this point in time, Ginooo is more thinking about the pass tiles that he'll have access to and wanting to secure a passing bonus tile for himself in both of the last 2 rounds. So maybe this was just the last round that he thought about blocking that bonus tile.
Yeah, it's probably so. I will see how much trading post gets out here. I'm not sure he's gonna get many of them. I will be surprised to see more than 2. So I don't think he's gonna get that many points from this bonus. It's still, if he gets 4 points from it, it's so nice. But it's not gonna be like a super high score. It probably is high as his eyes are on the past dueling bonus. So the question will be, can he get that for round 6? That will be really good for him. So one thing interesting here also is the air cult income, because there's going to be tons of workers in the game next round. 3 players played highly for this cult. It will be interesting to see how it affects the next round with all these high workers. I expect to see... I wonder if we will see players, for example, advancing digging. Will we see my mini hard digs? I think that's very likely for round 5 and 6.
Yeah, I would be very unsurprised to see at least witches do a few hard digs, and to leverage those extra workers into some digging actions to put down additional dwellings. That would be my guess, anyways. But Nerdcube did also pass for the the spade bonus. So, well, I mean, that doesn't negate the possibility of doing some hard digs, but maybe not as likely now. Yeah, so to ask you the same question that you asked me, now at the end of round 4, going into round 5, whose position are you the biggest fan of?
It's so hard to kind of. I think it's the question that we have to ask after everyone. But I always find it such a challenge to be able to say who's leading. If we look point-wise, Fakir is in the lead. He has 2 turns to come. He has jumping as opportunities. I mean, his cold position is all right as far as cold position for Fakirs go. I mean, so kind of tempted to say that right now I really, really like his game. Maybe to the point of saying that, perhaps he should be considered a point leader here. The leader going in. After that, I'm kind of split. I think, to me, mermaids and witches look to be more or less on equal term. It feels that after the last round for witches, so the round 3 for witches was very encouraging, but the round 4 feels like his position didn't progress that much. He won for Sanctuary and Trading Post. It seems that there's so much work to do to get these 3 towns left that it's hard to believe that he's gonna be able to do them. I mean, what I see is that he needs 6 digs to do it. While it seems that for if you compare with Mermaid's position, Mermaids need 2 digs to do his 3 towns. So 6 digs, I mean, he has a lot of workers, but it's a lot of digs.
Right. So we see that Ginooo. I was saying, so Ginooo completes his first town here, and he takes the coin town, which I think suggests very strongly that he is planning to build at least 2 trading posts this round in the north. And so that's what he needed the coins for. I think it's always a little bit of a shame when players need to take coin towns. They're not super efficient. I know that players like Ranior and nerdcube have almost a principled aversion to taking coin towns, and they refuse to do it. But it seems like a reasonable town for Ginooo to take. I think the question is, if we could rewind the game a little bit, is there a way for Ginooo to have organized his game so that something like a coin town first wasn't necessary? But I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Usually fakirs with landscape the thing they don't lack is coins, and the thing that they are not sure that they want to build this town. So to see him taking the coin towns is a little surprising to me. Maybe with the trading post bonus, he's interested in trying to do the trading post pass bonus in Water 1. He wants to capitalize on that on this round, so maybe that's the idea behind it. But yeah, it's a little bit surprising to see him doing that. I was thinking I still like his game. We'll say that to me, Mermaids comes second, Witches third, and Cultist fourth right now. But I mean, it's still Cultist has a strong position in cults. So Witches, if they can get on with their towns, it can change a lot the game. So there's still a lot of stake here. I don't know. How do you feel about how these factions are ranking right now?
I think I do. I think I agree with you. That was my sort of rough estimation. I think, yeah. Well, I mean, fakirs are always very surprising. Sometimes they generate an enormous number of points in the final round, and then some other times they seem to be having a very good round, but they don't quite get there. I think maybe I still just think that Fakirs are winning at the moment. What might come down to the difference between something like Mermaids and Witches is going to be getting on relevant pass tiles going into round 6, and then also whether or not Witches can somehow get enough going for a third town, but it seems very unlikely. So I do think that I would also put Mermaid second. Cultist, I'm having a very difficult time evaluating. Although it seems like Ranior should be able to score quite a good number of points going into these final 2 rounds, advancing, shipping twice this round at least for a lot of points with the pass shipping tile, and then building a good number of dwellings. The difficulty is going to be that refreshing those dwellings into trading posts next round and then building more dwellings isn't going to be as impactful for Ranior as it is for other players. We do see here that nerdcube does manage to take the double spade action. So in addition to the spade bonus action that he took from his pass tile, that's already 3 of the 6 digs that we had counted out as being necessary for third tone.
Yes and no, because there's something very telling here is that he dug 1 X that he doesn't need.
Oh, you're so right. He has done that, yeah.
So to me, that tells that he has given up on 3 towns. That means that he's going for 2 towns. And because if he wants to go 3 towns, he has no digs to waste. And he will go fire 2 and he has no digs to waste. So if he dug this hex, it means that he's given up on 3 towns.
Right.
And we're seeing 2 towns witches here. So that also means that he's blocking mermaids for network. And that's very, I think, nerdcube is such a practical player. I mean, he is, here I kind of completely trust his judgment. I think he recognized it was too hard to get to 3 towns and he didn't hang up to the dream of it. And that's often a mistake player will do. Like, you had this plan of building 3 towns, you had this dream, and you were gonna risk everything for it. And I think that, and that's the mark of a very good player to me. He recognized that it was not possible, and he decided to cut his losses. He recognized Mermaids was having a good game, and taking away 1 of his acts eventually is going to be good. Be able to build a town this round is going to be good for the income that it's going to get. So I think that's a pro move. I mean, I know. I remember first turn-based game I played with Ginooo, for example, and after the game he was telling me all that he imagined and explaining some of his decision because of these huge dreams that he had about the game, and I was like, wow, you have like great vision, really, really great vision, but to know when like to give up on these dreams and being more practical, I think is the mark of a great player, and that's something nerdcube is always very, very good at. And we're seeing it here again, I think.
So here nerdcube finishes 1 of his 2 towns, and he takes the Cult Step town for 8 points. It's a pretty generically good town. I think that the way that the cults are shaking out, these are still worth quite a number of cult points as well. So it seems and nerdcube also knows that that again Fakirs are going to be obligated with their second town to take the range extension, because it's almost always too expensive for Fakirs to build a stronghold, and especially in a game like this where the stronghold sanctuary passing bonus isn't present. So nerdcube knows the Fakir's next town is going to be the range town. And so this cult bump is especially relevant because it's just giving nerdcube quite a good number of points over Fakirs, just in virtue of inching up past them. Fakirs are also going to have to spend their priests in the final round almost only on carpet flights. So I think this is like a very, very strong town choice for nerdcube.
Absolutely, yes. It's a lot of points, and now we've seen them just win air, so that counts too. I totally agree with you on this one. One thing also, so Cultist has the shipping bonus, so it's not surprising that he's advancing his shipping. But he also has tons of workers, and Fakir's delayed advancing his range by his town choice. So is Cultist want to take the yellow at the center? That's E6. No, not E6, E8. Does Cultist wants to take E8 and then take A8? So production, if we can just have, I think it's A8. Thank you. It could plan maybe on connecting to this one. I mean, that could have been connection route since he has D4. I mean, usually you don't think of this connection route because Cultist doesn't have D4, but in this position, E8 and A8, taking in the meantime, one of the hexes of Fakir's, one of the yellow Fakirs, I think, was a very practical plan. I would have cheered for that, but it seems that you just went for B5. And, that means different plans. Probably means that he wants to go D8 and do a third town on the east and probably abandoning network. But I considering Fakir's position, I was kind of thinking that going D8 might have been the plan here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I liked the E8 plan. I thought it was interesting that this late in the game, Cultists had the opportunity to not only secure their own connection, but to hurt Fakirs a little bit. And it seemed like a very good option. I guess it's extremely worker intensive, and so Ranior is going for the much more cautious play of abandoning network, but almost virtually securing a third town of his, which is just giving him like a lot of pure points. So you can make the argument both ways as you did. This is another one of those, I think, very interesting points in the game to pause and come back to later on, because you could see how a player that's slightly more aggressive would have gone a different route. Actually, never mind. Maybe it just doesn't matter anymore. Look, there goes Ranior digging E8 again.
Yeah. So I'm wondering then, if he digs E8, I have difficulty seeing him still doing a third town in the east. So is it possible that he dug B5 because he was trying to kill Witch's Town, which I think is not happening anyway, but maybe he had in his mind that nerdcube wanted to go for that?
Yeah, and I think that...
So maybe that was kind of block.
Right, but, well, I have a lot of faith in Ranior. I think that that's possible for sure, but one of the things that I know about Ranior and that I would have suspected in this case is that it would have been very important to him to check to see whether or not that third town were a possibility for witches, and I think if he had done that, he would have come to the same evaluation that you did, that once that H4 hex is dug by witches, that very clearly telegraphs that only 2 towns will be built. And so I don't think that Ranior should have been concerned about blocking witches on B5 necessarily. And so I think that given that E8 was dug, I would have preferred E8 and A8 to be dug over this, because I think you're right that this sort of like, this doesn't seem to block witches, and now I'm not certain with 2 hard digs if Cultists will have enough to make this third town. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this. It would be interesting to find out from Ranior after what exactly was on his mind at this moment.
Yeah, I suppose one way to see it, I mean, you will want to... I was considering like all the time for witches digging H5, right? You want to dig H5 to get I8. Now that he has 2 ships, digging B5 to get to D8 is just equivalent to digging H5 and to digging I8. So maybe side this way, thinking that if he's going for A8 later, and there's not much pressure on the sacks, he probably can get it in round 6. He wants to build dwellings in order to kind of justify going for networks. So B5, H5. It's the same. It's maybe a little better B5 because he's two-player can leech from him, so there's more chance leech is going to be accepted. Maybe that was is thought here. Maybe that was the way thought about this move.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Actually, we see mermaids. I missed this, but mermaids have actually stolen the fire cult from cultists by committing quite a few priests there, and then also taking fire too. So slightly, that's a bit of a ding on cultists. I think it does make mermaids' game very strong. This is the second of their 3 probable towns coming in now.
Yeah, they just did their trading post for that. So mermaids still, I mean, in terms of points, Fakir's score right now is pretty high, right? But I'm not sure he has a lot of potential after that. It will be like he has still 1 carpet flight to do, maybe another one through digging. But I'm not sure I'm seeing a third one. You'll have 2 priests. I mean, maybe max 3 carpet flights, but then he doesn't. You'll have if he gets to 3 carpet flights, it'll be all right. He has built up all his trading posts, so he's passing for 98. I mean, he has a strong score. He has to get some network, I believe, because he's probably only doing 4 on the cult. So yeah, it's kind of a very interesting race here, where it's a little bit like if you watch cycling. Sometimes, like, a player runs away from the group, and it's much harder to because now he's alone, so he's not using the drift on others. And that's a bit the position of Ginooo right now. He has huge leads on everyone, but we will see others slowly catching up to him. The question is, can he hang on? Did he build a big enough lead in order to hang up? And that's kind of the story that we will have until the end here.
Right. Yeah. And we see here's a very, very interesting spot now for Ranior to be in. You can see that he's thinking quite a long time, but he is just going to pass. So this is one of those situations I was talking about where this seems to me to be really good for mermaids. Because mermaids are now going to be able to get this passing VP tile going into round 6. It virtually guarantees that they'll be able to score a decent number of points regardless of what they do. It's already worth 9 points for them on the pass. They can increase their shipping even more depending on what avenues are available for them. But this is exactly the kind of situation where I think mermaids have a distinct edge over witches in the rest of the game. I think this is the sort of situation that Nerdcube will be very unhappy about seeing. I think he was probably hoping that passing early and taking the dwelling bonus, he was hoping that the other players would sort of work in concert to try to deny mermaids a scoring bonus, and now that hasn't happened.
Yeah. And so we are in the final round here, last sprint for everyone. Nerdcube has by far more resources than others, so that's another story here. Can he convert these resources into points right now? He doesn't have tons of greens available. He has one on the lower right corner that he's gonna probably reach through digging, through digging the mountain just there. It will be interesting to see with that kind of pile of resources, does he go advanced digging here? I think it's a possibility. I would not be surprised. Probably that's the best way he has to score, I would think. So yeah, will not be surprised to see him advancing digging. Other than that, is there any possibility that Cultist decides to advance digging? I'm wondering.
We just saw cultists take the single spade action to dig A8 and prioritize connection
good point.
over the possibility of a final town. And so I think Ranior is in a position here where it's just about point maximization. So I'm not sure what that exactly looks like for him, but it could very well include advancing digging.
So it took single spade rather than double spade. That's weird, no?
Yeah, and so I think he must have done some amount of calculations where he's thinking about how many more structures he's going to put down. And I mean, he should be. Is he even building another town? This is the question, because he doesn't have Water 1. There isn't that much upside for building trading posts. He could score a town for a good number of points, but it's not obvious that it's worth it. I'd be actually very curious to see how Ranior organizes this last round and what he decides on for maximizing points.
He has to build trading posts in order to build more dwellings. So if he has to build trading posts, it's probably just as better to decide to go for it down.
He's also on the trading post scoring bonus. So yeah, of course he's going to build these trading posts. Sorry, that was a pretty big oversight on my part.
Yeah, no worries. I know that the experience, it's funny because I'm used to casts with the games that I played, but I find that casting and commenting on everyone at the same time much more demanding than playing and casting at the same time. To follow everyone's line of thought and everything that is going, it's kind of a fun challenge.
Yeah.
So we see here Nerdcube's turn, and we'll see like what he goes for. So what did he do? Okay, he was deciding on whether he accepts Leech from Cultist, and he did accept it. All right, so I mean, Cultist connected, but there's also the question: will he be able to do any points on the network? Which is it seems that Fakir's, even with the lost on even with the loss of this important yellow on E8, it seems that Fakir still has a pretty good position for network. Doesn't have thousands of places to jump for, but it's still all right.
Yeah.
So I expect Fakirs are gonna win this, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I think Fakirs are still to keep going with your metaphor about the cycling race. I think that they have built up enough of a lead that just cycling consistently from now and doing what they've been doing is probably enough to get them there.
Yeah, it seems that, again, if he doesn't have a pass style, he has the spade, so he's going to use that to jump. He can use a hard dig, so he's probably getting to, he's almost certainly getting to 3 structures. And maybe Cultist can get to 3 structures? Yeah, probably Cultist can. Still, I mean, tying for network with this kind of advantage in point, I expect will be sufficient. But again, I mean, those 2 jumps are 16 points. It's going to be interesting. I think it might be enough, but I will not. I will not gamble on it.
Production jumping the gun there a little bit for a second.
Yeah. All right, so Mermaid is getting ready for his 3rd town. Again, Mermaid is going to pass for a lot of points, so that's to take into consideration. I wonder, though, if she's doing any network point, and he's not big on cult either. Well, maybe not that bad, actually.
Yeah, Mermaids has a decent number of network points, yeah.
of cult points, yeah.
So it looks like Nerdcube has upgraded digging once, which I think we had both talked about being very reasonable for him. He will get his second town. I don't know what other points are left for him after that. Taking a high point town obviously is going to be very probable, and then after that, maybe advancing digging one more time. Well, no, he'll have to advance shipping to connect. Although, let's maybe it's worth calculating here if connecting is even worth it for Nerdcube. Maybe he's already resigned himself to being last on network now that cultists have connected.
Yeah, that's very possible. The question also here is whether mermaids. Well, mermaid still has the landscape to build. That's one thing with witches, right? With landscape witches, it's always kind of a bummer because you want to compete on network, but often you cannot build this landscape once you've gone sanctuary. So unless that's you might be right about that. Maybe he's just deciding because we see him advancing digging there. I mean, he still can go for a shipping town if there's one left. Yes, there is, or the priest town, but it's not clear, as you said. It's worth advancing shipping at this point.
So we see Fakirs here pretty much hitting their point ceiling for the game. I don't think that there's anything else that Fakirs can do to earn any points even. So I think this is pretty much where Ginooo's
for air. I mean, there's two things he can do. He could do a temple, right?
Yes.
The idea of temple, you either go for air 1. For air 1 is 3 points, but there's something to be said here to go water 2, because it gives you 2 points on. I mean, assuming that Nerdcubes cannot advance on cult anymore, it gives you 2 points on the water cult and 1 on fire. So there's something to be said for that too. So 3 points too, but taking away some from Nerdcubes. It might be a little less safe because it's possible also that Nerdcube can still do a temple and kind of contest that. So not too sure about this, but I suppose he's going to do a temple.
Yeah, no, temple for AR1 seems very obvious, yeah.
Then can Ranior do... Because Ranior needs to dig to put his landscape down, needs to build 2 dwellings to get to 3 structures. I'm not sure I'm seeing it for him. Because he still has a trading post to do. So if Fakirs wins the network alone, and he's passing around 124, say that he goes for air 1. That means 134, 142, maybe high 140 as a final score, something like that. Could be sufficient. While if you look at mermaids, I mean, it will be easier to see after his town. I suppose he's getting 6 points of network. He's getting something like 12, maybe 15 points. Maybe 15 points on cults. And you will pass for 15 too. So that's 30 points coming, plus the town. Plus 4 points, well, maybe 3 points for air 1. What? That makes him maybe around 140, something like that?
Yeah. So it'll be close.
Kind of hard to say, but it's good. Yeah, it will be close, definitely.
But I don't think that. I think Ginooo probably. Well, Gino's already on 3 structures. I think it'll depend a little bit on if there's some way for Ranior to also get to 3 structures that we're not seeing. And then knock a few points off of Ginooo.
And then which is, I mean, no point on network, that hurt a lot, but he's gonna get Chown, which is about 15 points, and he has what? Chown 13, maybe 14 points. So I don't know, yeah, I see.
Yeah, so 1 trading post for Nerdcube is 3 points. 1 dwelling is 4 points, so that's 7. The 5 points from the town is 12. The value of the town, which in this case is looking increasingly likely like the 11-point town, would be 23. And then it looks like about 12 points from Cult right now. So Nerdcube is probably around 120 something. Definitely not close enough to beat Ginooo.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that he's getting this one. And it feels like Ryan is just too far away. I mean, he's doing a number of points on the Colts. He has the trading post pass bonus. I mean, he's gonna pass for 6 for 12. But still, without network, I think he's just too far ahead. Oops.
Yeah, well, okay, we're back.
He's too far behind.
Yeah. So,
all right.
So Ranior is thinking a little bit before his move. I'm wondering if there is a numerical route where Ranior does get to 3 structures. Will involve him taking Act 6 now, probably, and then building the rest of his structures. I think he'd also need to take a coin town. He doesn't do that. He takes a priest town. So I think that this is Ranior basically competing for first on network.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no way. He can get the double spade, get the landscape down. If he gets the double spade, because he's getting something back, right? Every time if people denies, gets something back. He gets 1 power back from building. So, and he needs 2 workers and 4 coins. I think he's gonna be just a little short. Because what I'm wondering here is, why did it take the priest down rather than the 11 points? So he must be sure that he can do something with these resources. So Mermaid's making some kind of play for network here. I mean, it doesn't really block Ranior, because to him this hex is just as good as the one on the black one on the east. I mean, does he get his town now? What's going on?
Yeah, that is very. It seems like he's conceded the town. He no longer has the ability to pay the spade cost that's required to place the landscape, which he would now need. So the Mermaids just conceded that town, which I'm very curious about. Yeah.
To me, it seems like a thing, like he thought that the landscape was free or something. I mean, that's kind of unexplainable. Why do you give up on the town there? I mean, the only thing I was wondering, does he plan to send priests to Earth and then use the bridge? But even then, doesn't have enough for the town.
Yeah.
Seems to me like just a blunder, and end of game blunder.
Yeah, unfortunately. I wonder if that also will cost George. Well, I mean, so Ginooo almost certainly wins now. I don't think, because I think George was the person who was in the most contention to beat him, but now George won't be completing a town. I wonder if that'll actually make George slip below Nerdcube. I don't think so, but
well, Nerdcube is not gonna beat him on network still because he has the landscape that he cannot put down without having another template. And George is gonna be able to advance shipping, passing for quite a lot of points still. 18 points. And in terms of cults, it seems fairly even. So I suppose that George still is in front of Nerdcube. And we'll see here if Ranior is able indeed to... So right now it does seem that he has it. He's going to tie Ginooo on that one. Yeah, he has it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, that's right. So it seemed we were being worried for nothing. It turned out that even taking the priest town, it was possible for Ranior to get down to 3 structures. So that's quite good for him.
Yeah.
Yep. Again, I don't know if it makes any difference
it just
Ginooo
makes
winning.
George.
Yeah.
George's move just even more bizarre. I mean, to me, he's playing like he thinks the landscape is free, doesn't take a dig. I mean, that's because he's just done a trading post rather than advanced shipping, which was a lot more points to advanced shipping.
Yeah, he must be mistaken about the nature of placing the landscape, which is very unfortunate, but does happen.
Yeah, that's the mermaid's landscape is definitely the more tricky of the landscape. So I suppose he was planning on using the landscape and building the shipping town or something like that, and that explains his moves. But I'm surprised. I would wonder, like, going in the players' chat if he's saying something about that. Yeah, he's on the players' chat. He's saying that he thought he could town there and build another dwelling. Oops. Meaning that he's acknowledging his mistake.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. You hate to see it, especially in a tournament setting, and especially this late in a game where the margins weren't very far away. I mean, I did think that Ginooo had it regardless, but I think this is not. It's not good for, well, I mean, unfortunately, second place doesn't really make a tremendous amount of difference either, based on what I was saying about advancing and so on, being just a matter of coming first. So I think Ginooo is always getting there, and that was sort of set in stone. But George will be very disappointed in this, and I think, just from an exciting Terra Mystica standpoint, you always want the scores to be as high as possible, and you always want the players to do as well as possible. So I really sympathize with George for that stuff.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. That's I play in this game also. I know that they are much more draining than a normal game. There's the world setting, there's the stakes. That's late game is kind of normal to be a little exhausted, and I suppose that that was a factor too here. Speaking of which, I know someone said that in the chat. I mean, we have to lift our hats to Gino's because he is in Europe right now, so it's 3 a.m. for him, and still being able to compete at this level. I mean, all respect to him.
Yeah, I saw on the Discord. I saw on the Discord a few hours ago that he was saying that he took 2 showers in the span of 3 hours or something just to wake himself up. So let's calculate cultists here, what their final score is looking like. So they're going to build 1 more dwelling for 4 points. Then they'll be passing for 12 points. So that's 16. It looks like they're at the moment getting 22 points on cults. So that's 38. And then they're tying for first on network is another 15. So that's 43. So cultists is actually doing pretty well. Better than I would have anticipated earlier on in this game.
84, 96. And he's doing, you said 24 in cult?
22 right now. Oh, but it does look like he'll have 2 priests left over, and that the only productive thing to do with those priests is to advance 2 spaces on air to tie Ginooo, so that'll be worth 2 points as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because of the landscape. So
yeah,
he's gonna, and it's also worth a lot because it's the swing against the leader, right? So it's some 4-point swings against Ginooo doing that, and that's the reason behind the priest down. I'm pretty sure that he had that sorted out, and that was
yeah. This is the meticulous calculation from Ranior that I was talking about before. And here we see that we've entered final scoring.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think if we didn't make any disastrous mistakes in calculations, then Ginooo is the winner. But it looks like now that
I believe so. Yeah.
And Ranior, I think, comes second.
Very close. Yeah, very very close. Maybe 2-3 points behind. And who knows? I mean, if he's 1 point behind, could he be best again?
Oh, actually, it looks like
gonna be too far. And Ginooo,
it looks like nerdcube comes second by 1 point because he has 1 point's worth of resources.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. So
yeah, you're right.
I'm pretty so.
Ginooo still has tons of points from resources.
Yeah. So I think George unfortunately did cost himself quite a number of points with what he ended up doing. But this is not. Wow. This is a very interesting outcome to this game. Not what I expected necessarily, but kudos to Ginooo for getting
absolutely there. I mean, he came there, without complex. He played Fakir's, I think, extremely well. Everything went rolling for him. He was able to capitalize. I mean, really, really well done from him.
So I suppose we'll be getting Ginooo in here.
I expect that. We want to speak to him. We want to have his impression of this game. Let's see in what state we find him. Will he need another shower after this one? I believe he will, from sweating from the all the pressure. I mean, he must have been pretty excited. He must have felt that he had a good game and that he was getting there. I'm really, really looking forward to hear him. And I mean, Ginooo is. We've heard him on the cast. He's such a great guy. He's very, very enthusiastic. He loves the game. So very, very happy for him.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited about this. And yeah, sorry, Chris, go ahead. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I was communicating with production there. It looks like Gino's going to be here imminently. Very excited to chat with him. I feel like he's, despite the fatigue, he's going to have a lot to say about this game. I think he should be genuinely very excited. It was a great performance. Definitely something to be proud of.
I think at this time he's both excited, but He's exhausted and excited at the same time. I mean, he's gonna. I'm telling you something. He's not gonna go to sleep at 3 a.m. this morning. He's gonna be up for a little while again. I think, with the kind of all the hype from the performance he's just done.
Yeah, I could imagine. He's gonna get in his bed and then, despite how tired he is, just not gonna be able to fall asleep, just replaying every single move in the whole game, and this is the result that you want for sure. So.
Hello.
So, Ginooo is with us. Hey, congratulations, Ginooo.
Thank you.
What a game.
Yeah, it was crazy.
How confident were you? Yeah, how confident were you that you could take this? You were not the favorite here, you were the underdog. How confident were you that you were able to take these big players in this one?
Yeah, it was crazy because, coming into this game, of course, I was the underdog with lowest elo and everything. And then, you have in your back mind that you lost. You still have 5 losses against Nerdcube and also Ranior. And it was I would say it came in the right moment, this win.
So when you speak of beating the odds.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead, Zoras. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel.
So I was going to ask you about Zoras and I had a lot to say about the auction in this game. We thought that it went in a very interesting direction. How satisfied do you think you were with your spot just at the end of the auction?
As longer the auction went, as more I saw that Fakius could work out. I think always in a game with very good players, it's very important that you get some early leech. Yeah, and in this setup, I was confident that I can get enough leech in round 1, since there was this leech triangle in this middle place, and then of course the west where was the mermaid. And at the end of the day, I got enough early leech for good first 2 rounds. Yeah, and that helped me a lot to have a good game. And then there was one crucial point in round 2 when Ranior had all those priests and everything, and he had to decide if he puts the priest into the cults or if he upgrades ship twice. And I think if he would have upgraded ship twice, I would have been dead at that point. And I was pretty happy when he decided to put his priests in the tracks.
So we would say that was one of the defining moments in the game.
Yeah, that was my only possibility to reach the north of the map, and that was of course important for my second city.
Yeah. And when did you start to believe? When you felt like I have this? Well, at what point of the game did you start to think that you were leading and you were gonna win this one?
Yeah, I would say at the beginning of round 4, when I saw not round 4, round 5, when first of all round 4 when I got water 1 to secure to get some victory points from my trading posts. And then of course it was nice passing in round 5 for the trading post pass tile. And then I was able to put down all 4 trading posts, and that was massive. And from that point on, I knew, okay, I have an amazing last round. I can just make 3 more jumps in my last round, and I have not that much more to do. 3 jumps is 24 points, and and then I hope that it is enough to win the game.
Yeah, the passing game obviously was huge in this one. We kind of noted that you passed twice for the pass shipping bonus. I was wondering if you could tell us a little more about that. What was in your mind when you made this decision? Was it like your strategy to block that as much as possible?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of experience, because I tried out a lot Fakirs in my last games in the arena. And there were these situations where there was this shipping shipping pass tile in the game, and taking it from the others. I mean, I took it first in round 2 or 3, can't remember exactly, but when nerdcube upgraded ship twice, and I saw, okay, I can get nearly the same out of the pass tiles what were there, and so I decided to decline nerdcube 6 points. That was for me more important at that point.
Yeah, and I think that those decisions proved to be very crucial. So kudos to you for identifying those spots. I think that that's the kind of thing that, almost all players, besides maybe like just the very top 1% experts with a ton of experience, would have noticed. And so really good on you for seeing those spots and making those heads up plays. And it was close in the end. I mean, you did have a lot of points, but it came down to
8 points.
So enough of a small difference that really could have been the whole thing. So, wow, kudos to you for seeing that.
Yeah, I'm happy that it worked out.
So you are saying that you played a lot of Fakirs in the arena recently. Was that a plan? Was that practice in order for this tournament? Did you have in your head coming in that you wanted Fakirs and you wanted to capitalize on this recent experience that you had?
I don't think, no, that's not the reason. I mean, when I play games in the arena, I just put something in what I think it's good and what maybe I also like to play. And when I have some idea to try something out, I just go for it, even if sometimes it costs me the game. But at the end of the day, I get out some experience, and that has for me at some points more importance than winning every single game. And of course, and when you play a tournament like this, I am much more focused and I can concentrate much more. So I can prevent myself from making a lot of mistakes. And that was very important for me, because since it's in the middle of the night here in Germany, so it was I was a little bit afraid that I'm not I cannot hold this focus over the whole game, but it worked out very well. So I was fired up. That helped me a lot.
Yeah, you certainly did. Very, very impressive performance overall.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, congratulations again, Ginooo. And especially, for fighting through the exhaustion of having to play so late at night and just having a masterful game. The fatigue didn't show whatsoever, and so congrats again. Really well deserved.
Thank you, guys.
Hey. So we'll see you, Ginooo, in the final then. And again, congratulations for an absolutely amazing game here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Zoras. That means a lot to me. Thank you, guys.
All right, take care, Ginooo.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Ginooo, winner of today's game. Amazing performance. He showed you that on a single game, anything can happen. He was the underdog coming in. He beat everyone. Do you have N word here for us, Daniel?
Well, mostly for you, that it looks like now basically everybody that you'll be playing in the next round, and I hope you're ready. I hope we've seen some exceptional plays throughout the tournament game so far, and now we've seen Ginooo play an exceptional game this late at night, and so I just want to bid you good luck for the next game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everything. I think the games are all going to be incredible.
Yeah, thank you. As I said, I mean, if those games showed anything, is that anything can happen in one single game. So I think it's going to be a very interesting, and I expect a very, very difficult match from all these very good players that will be there. All right, so thanks everyone for watching. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing audience tonight, a lot of activity on the chat. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Daniel. Again, a lot of fun casting with you.
Thank you very much, Zoras, and thanks production for another excellent stream.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.